Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Vasudevaya. Failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauramani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Namo Mahabadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So with the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, we'll try to discuss on this topic. Especially for a Brahmana, an important quality is satisfaction. And here, Srila Prabhupada is sort of defining what is satisfaction. Yadricha labha santushto. Satisfied with gains which are obtained of their own accord. So whatever comes of its own accord, one is satisfied with that. And one is not making too much endeavors to try to obtain something which is beyond one's capacity. Srila Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, to illustrate the satisfaction of a Brahmana, he speaks of his own personal experience and what he observed when he was staying at Allahabad or Prayagraj. So he says that where he was staying, just beside his house, there was the house of a Brahmin couple, a husband and wife. And so they were very pious people. They would rise early in the morning, and in Prayag we have the Sangam of Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. So this husband wife, they would rise early in the morning, they would go to the Ganges, take bath, and come back. And the man would be doing so many pujas and rituals and religious activities. And the wife would be doing some household chores. And the man would spend many hours doing these pujas and these rituals. And it would almost become like noontime. And then and then they would have their lunch, and then take a nap, and then after that, the wife would cook a number of eatables, variety of eatables. In that surrounding area, there were many colleges and hostels where students would live. So they would cook, and then in the evening time, they would bring out those eatables, small stall in front of their house, and maybe for 3 4 hours in the evening time, they would sell those eatables, and then they would wind up at around 9 9:30 and finished. That was their life. So how much ever they earned by that endeavor, they were satisfied with that. Of course, somebody may say, "Oh, that's impractical." But any case, so depends on the person. But Srila Prabhupada tells this as an example to illustrate simple living and being satisfied with whatever is easily available. So, what is the importance of, as devotees, now talking about as devotees, what is the importance of cultivating this quality of satisfaction? So, let's hear a few answers from all of you and then we'll take it ahead. Yes, what's the importance of cultivating this quality? Yes, Mother.
It helps one develop faith in Krishna.
Helps one develop faith in Krishna. How's that?
Believing that Krishna will provide everything necessary.
Okay, fine. So one has faith that yes, okay, Krishna will provide. So, okay, that's good.
And then we can focus on higher things.
What's higher?
Like we can focus on like otherwise we'll be into the work. We'll be thinking on the work only. Otherwise, if we are satisfied with the work, then we can think much higher than that.
Okay, we can focus on Krishna conscious activities, duties. Okay, fine.
Knowledge, Prabhu. Knowledge.
Knowledge. How?
If we gain sufficient knowledge, we can act accordingly. So knowledge is the king of all things. So if we get knowledge,
So, satisfaction leads to knowledge, or knowledge is required for satisfaction?
knowledge is required for satisfaction.
Okay, okay. We are discussing, of course, the importance of satisfaction. Of course, the other way also is correct. Satisfaction will also lead to knowledge because one can focus on spiritual knowledge. Yes, Mataji.
The mind is peaceful and so sadhana is smooth.
Yes, so the mind is not flickering and meditating on so many desires and sense objects and so many things. So then the mind is more peaceful, focused on spiritual activities. Thank you. Yes, bro.
One becomes one pointed instead of many branched.
Okay, fine. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. Okay, yes, one pointed in one's endeavors. Yes.
If we are satisfied, then we can be like safe from complaining and being envious of things, so that we can focus in our life.
Okay, that's also a good point. By being satisfied, one can be focused on one's own endeavors and not on what others are doing and not be envious. That comes in this verse also. Nirmatsara. Yes.
Happy.
In terms of preaching, for a preacher, if we are not satisfied on our own, how can we satisfy others when we are preaching?
Okay, good point. If we ourselves are not satisfied and happy, then how can we preach to others? So we will preach to others to be satisfied and happy. They'll say, "You are not satisfied." Then how can so? The best preacher is one who preaches by own example. So yes.
Usually in this correction, Prabhupada's many times told, like, don't get entangled from this so-called modern civilization. And many times you've heard, grow your own food, grow your own crops. And
Okay, simple living. Simple living. Be satisfied with
simple
simple.
living won't come until you are satisfied from within.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
That's very necessary.
Yes, that's true. So we all know the famous verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta. So as long as one has any types of desire for bhukti, material sense enjoyment, mukti, liberation, siddhi, achieving some perfections, mystic siddhis, as long as one has any type of material desires, then he will always be ashanta. He can never be peaceful. But a Krishna Bhakta is nishkama. He does not have any material desires. And so therefore he is shanta. He is peaceful and he can peacefully focus on Krishna consciousness and one's Krishna conscious practices. We all know the pastime from the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, how Vyasadeva, after writing all the Vedas and Puranas and Upanishads and all the scriptures, he was still dissatisfied. He was not satisfied. And he was wondering, I did so much of work, I observed strict disciplinary vows, I performed austerities, so many things I did, but still I'm not satisfied. Why is it so? He was contemplating. So in that connection, Srila Prabhupada, first canto, fourth chapter, verse number 27. Purport, Srila Prabhupada, short purport but amazingly profound and deep. Srila Prabhupada writes two statements. Srila Prabhupada writes, perfection can only be obtained when one is satisfied at heart. And that satisfaction has to be searched beyond matter. Perfection can only be attained when one is satisfied at heart. And that satisfaction has to be searched out beyond matter. Both the statements are very deep and profound. So perfection for us is perfection in Krishna consciousness, perfection in our devotional practices, can only be attained when one is satisfied at heart. So as we have seen different benefits of being satisfied, so ultimate perfection can only be attained when one is satisfied. That means one is free from material desires. Because as long as different material desires are pulling one in different directions, one cannot focus on the ultimate goal. Somebody said, Vyavasaitmika buddhi. One cannot have the Vyavasaitmika buddhi. It will be Bahushaka. It will be many branched. One's goals will be many branched. One will not be able to focus. And without that focus on one's goals, one cannot have perfection. So therefore, perfection can only be attained when one is satisfied at heart. But then the next question arises, how to achieve that satisfaction? And for that, Prabhupada says, that satisfaction has to be searched out beyond matter. Because on the material platform, it is never possible to be satisfied. Because the nature of material desires, as Krishna speaks about in the third chapter of the Gita, is what?
Third chapter.
The nature of the material desires is?
Temporary.
Okay?
Burning like fire.
Yes, burning like fire. Yes. So that is absorption and hearing. So even while doing service, she's hearing. Vyavasaitmika buddhi. So the point is that on the material platform, it is not possible to be satisfied. The more we try to satisfy material desires, the more they will increase and multiply. One wants more and more and more. There's no end to it. And so therefore, when one gives up these material desires, and one can only give up the material desires, it's not possible to totally give them up. Srila Prabhupada often said, desires cannot be made zero. So some yogis and transcendentalists may think of making the mind void or making the mind desireless. But Srila Prabhupada, he says that even the thought to become desireless is a desire.
Yes.
That is also a desire, to become desireless. So, therefore, it is not possible to become desireless, but we can cultivate spiritual desires and replace the material desires with spiritual desires. So, when one is satisfied with only spiritual desires to satisfy Guru and Krishna, then that's how one can actually be satisfied on the spiritual platform. So the satisfaction can only be obtained, satisfaction has to be searched out beyond matter. On the material plane, it is never going to be possible. And we have so many different examples from the scriptures, whether it is Saubari Muni or Yayati or so many of these personalities who tried to satisfy themselves on the material platform, but they could never be satisfied. So now, the next point is that what are the effects or the consequences of not being satisfied spiritually? What are the effects? What are the consequences of that? In that connection, we read in the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in connection to Lord Vamandev. So when Lord Vamandev, he comes to Bali Maharaj begging for 3 steps of land. So what does Bali Maharaj say? Bali Maharaj says, oh what? Only 3 steps? And that too size of your steps? So small. I can give you so many things. I can give you islands, I can give you kingdoms, I can give you chariots, horses, whatever you want I can give. It seems your intelligence is also very small. That's why you have come to me and asking only 3 steps of land. So then Lord Vamandev, he speaks something very, very important. So Lord Vamandev says, for a person with uncontrolled mind and senses, even if he is given the 3 worlds, he is never going to be satisfied. So, if one's mind and senses are uncontrolled, even if such a person gets the 3 worlds, he's never going to be satisfied. He still wants more. And that is what we find amongst materialistic people. In one lecture, Srila Prabhupada says, even if a person has 20 factories, he's still making plans to open the 21st one. Never satisfied. And so, if the mind and senses are uncontrolled, keep on increasing. And then Lord Vamandev says another very important point, which is especially very relevant for us as Brahmanas, as devotees. He says, if a Brahmana is dissatisfied, then all his spiritual knowledge diminishes, just like pouring water on fire, extinguishing fire by pouring water on it. So, if one is not satisfied, the spiritual knowledge diminishes. Again, the same point. How the spiritual knowledge diminishes? Any thoughts? How spiritual knowledge diminishes if one is dissatisfied?
We'll engage in material things.
Yes, he'll engage in material activities, then what will happen?
We'll gain sins.
Okay, probable. He could be performing some sinful activities. What else?
Offenses.
Offenses due to?
Due to hankering, because he's dissatisfied, he'll hanker for more.
Mm-hmm.
He's driven by greed.
Mm.
Go to any extent of
Okay, that's also possible. That's also correct. Okay, offenses, there could be offenses. When there are offenses, then spiritual realizations, one loses one's spiritual realizations because of offenses. One loses the taste in spiritual activities. That's correct.
Weakness is
Thank you.
purity.
Okay, he can lose his purity.
And he will seek satisfaction outside spiritual activities.
Okay, he'll seek satisfaction outside spiritual activities. Yes, ma'am.
He will go into the cycle of having frustration from material desires not being fulfilled, and then anger, anger, intelligence being destroyed.
Okay, that's what's possible. Yes, dhyaito vishyan pumsa sangasteshu bhajayate sangat sanjayate kamat krodha bhajayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibrahma smriti brahmshat buddhinasha buddhinasha. So all that can happen. Yes. So the spiritual knowledge, in order for one to have spiritual knowledge, and by spiritual knowledge, of course, it is not just theoretical bookish knowledge, but it is realizations on the path of devotional service. And to have those realizations, it is very important that one satisfy Guru and Krishna. We were discussing in Bhakti Shastri class also that quoting 6.8 Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada begins that purport by saying, simply bookish knowledge without realization is useless. And so, therefore, bookish knowledge one can get simply by reading, memorizing. But then, in order to get realized knowledge, what is important is one satisfy Guru and Krishna, because realizations come by grace. In the Guru Puja, we sing what? Yes, that is one. Chakshudan diloi janme janme prabhu se. Divya gyan hridhe prakashito. The transcendental knowledge is manifest within the heart of a devotee by the grace of Guru and Krishna. And so, therefore, if there are material desires, one is trying to fulfill material desires, and in doing so, one dissatisfies Guru and Krishna, then obviously it is very difficult to have realized knowledge by which one can have convictions in the practice of devotional service and live a life based on those convictions. So, just like here in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is saying, Krishna himself is saying in the verse, Yadricha labha santushto dvandva tito vimatsaraha. So when one is satisfied with what is obtained of its own accord, Yadricha labha santushto, the result of that will be dvandva tito vimatsaraha. Then one will not be affected by the dualities, and one will be free from envy. So what happens when one has material desires? There's envy. Because if I have something less, someone has something more, then envy. Then how to get that? One immediately starts making plans, maybe devious plans of how to get it. So then all that begins because of the material desires. There could be envy. And one will be affected by the dualities, success, failure, all that, because of having the material desires. And in the material world, these anarthas are so deep rooted. Srila Prabhupada writes in 1.1.2 purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that in the material world, there is competition between everyone. There's competition between animal and animal, man and man, society and society, nation and nation. Between everyone, there is envy and competition, because that's material world. That's the reason for material existence. Ichha dvesha samuttena. So envy is very deep rooted in the material world. Srila Prabhupada tells two stories to indicate how envy exists even amongst animals. What? Which one?
Monkey, we say.
Which monkey?
One monkey eats Immediately another monkey comes and snatches.
Oh, that's.
About territory.
Huh?
The jungle.
Okay, anyway.
Dog is
Tell that.
I mean, the dog has his own, what do you call, place, and then if someone tries to come in his boundaries,
Okay.
he's like, this is my.
Okay, fine. Okay, okay. This is one example. Yes, that the dog is attached to his own territory and he doesn't want anyone to enter. But proper stories are this: a dog was having some food in the mouth, and he was crossing. He was going on the bridge across a river, and then he sees down. He sees his reflection, and because he's a dog, what he thinks? He thinks there's another dog there, and he's also having some food. So, envy. Why? He's having some other food. I want that also. So, immediately he opens his mouth to bark at the other dog and he loses his own food. So, Prabhupada says that's what happens when one is envious. One does not get what the other person has. One not only does not get what the other person has, but he also loses what he has. This is what happens when one is envious. And second story, Srila Prabhupada says, again, I'm sure you must have heard this, of in the jungle, so the lion, the king of the jungle, was harassing all the animals and eating all the animals. So they had a meeting. And then they came up with a very wise decision. And what was the decision? That every day one animal would volunteer to become food for the lion. Panchatantra story, you might have heard it. But Srila Prabhupada uses these stories to make some important points. And so one day it was the turn of a very intelligent rabbit. And so the rabbit purposefully went late. And so when the rabbit purposefully went late, so the lion was hungry. I saw this a saying on a restaurant somewhere, I don't remember where. It said, a hungry man is an angry man. And I'm sure we all also have experience. If somebody is kept hungry too long, then the immediate effect is anger. So, in any case, so the lion became very angry because he was kept hungry. And so when the rabbit came, he was very angry and he said, why are you late? So the rabbit said, sir, please don't get angry at me. The cause of my being late is another lion on the way. And actually, he wanted to eat me. But I told him and pacified him that I'm supposed to be food for another lion. So if you want to eat me, I will go and take permission and come back. So lion said, oh, there is another lion? Where is he? Show me. Yes, sir, please come with me. So then the intelligent rabbit takes the lion to a well. And then he tells the lion, see, there's another lion in the well. So again, animals have less intelligence, even though one may be a lion. So the lion looks inside the well and he sees, oh, there is another lion. And he's so angry. And then he roars and jumps into the well and loses his life. So, of course, Srila Prabhupada uses this story for many things. One thing is envy. How when there's envy, then one loses everything. Srila Prabhupada also uses the story for another lesson, and that is how intelligence is more powerful than physical strength. Or there's an English saying which says, what?
Who is not strong has to be wise.
The pen is mightier than the sword. Okay. So anyway, so these are examples for how envy exists even amongst animals. And of course, amongst humans, we see all these wars taking place these days. So what is it? It's all envy. And that envy is so deep rooted that even when someone becomes a devotee, the envy could still last. And even if one becomes the king of heaven, still the envy could persist. And we have heard this many times, these pastimes. And significant pastime is the pastime between Indra and Prithu Maharaj. Everyone knows the pastime, right? Of course, Indra has many pastimes in that connection, but this is a significant one where Indra, king of heaven, such a powerful post, he's a devotee doing a service for the Supreme Lord, very important service for the Supreme Lord. But yet, he is envious. And when he understands that Prithu Maharaj is about to perform the 100th hour sacrifice, he is burning with envy. He's thinking he's out to occupy my post. And then we can see the results of these material desires, this envy, that even such an exalted devotee as Indra can stoop down to such devious ways, unethical ways of acting and dealing. And as we know, as the pastime goes on, that Indra comes to steal the horse, and then initially steals, then the next time he comes, then Prithu Maharaj sends his son to get him, who was also very powerful. And then Indra started manifesting different garbs of sannyasis, religious people, and he introduced so many pseudo religions and bogus religions, so many things he introduced just to save himself and prevent Prithu Maharaj from performing the 100th hour sacrifice. Just see how one can turn to such unethical and devious ways just to fulfill material desires, to stick on to one's post and position, which are all so temporary. Now, that philosophy definitely Indra knew. Correct. He definitely knew it. The temporary nature of material things, he knew all that. But the nature of material desires is when one is affected, as we were discussing yesterday also. When one is affected by the Rajogun and Tamogun, then the Rajogun and Tamogun cover one's intelligence also. And then, as in those series of verses of Dhyaito Vishyan Pumsa, so what happens? Smriti Vibramaha. So one forgets what one has learnt, all the wonderful things, all the wonderful knowledge that one has learnt in Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav. Everything gets covered over by the Rajagun and Tamogun when one is put in a situation of unfulfilled material desires leading to envy. And then we see what happens. And then, of course, Prithu Maharaj, the Brahmanas who were performing the sacrifice, they said, enough is enough. We will chant mantras by which Indra will be dragged into the sacrificial fire and burnt. And at that time, who appeared?
Brahma.
Yes, Lord Brahma came and said, okay, it's okay, stop. This sacrifice you're performing is meant to satisfy all the devatas, including Indra. How can you burn Indra instead of satisfying him? So anyway, that's how the pastime goes on, and Prithu Maharaj immediately agrees. So that's Prithu Maharaj's non-envious nature. He didn't have material desires, so therefore, as soon as Brahmaji gave instruction, he immediately said, okay, fine. He immediately stopped. No arguments, no counter arguments. He immediately stopped. So, this is what happens when one is dissatisfied. When one has uncontrolled material desires, this is what happens. Now, for a sadhaka, a devotee, if the mind is constantly meditating on how to fulfill material desires, how to pull this one down, how to pull that one down, then how one can focus on the holy name, focus on Krishna consciousness? How is possible? Just not possible. That is why Lord Vamandev is saying, what? Spiritual strength diminishes when one is dissatisfied. When a Brahmana is dissatisfied, spiritual strength reduces. And so, what are the effects of having these unfulfilled desires, and especially desires to earn a lot of wealth, to get a lot of prestige, puja, la, pratishtha? If one has all these desires, what are the results? In the seventh chapter of the seventh canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 13th chapter, text number 32. There's a series of verses by the Avdut Brahman. So we know Prahlad Maharaj, he met an Avdut Brahman, and this Avdut Brahman gives some very, very important instructions. And one of them, he speaks of what are the results of desires to accumulate a lot of wealth, opulence. Could be on the subtle platform also. What are the results? And these are some very beautiful verses. And Srila Prabhupada in these purports is also giving some very important instructions, especially for ISKCON devotees. Okay. So, I'll just recite the verse also because nice verses. Text 32. So this is 7th canto, 13th chapter, text 32. Pashyami dhaninam klesham lubdhanam ajitatmanam bhayad alabdha nidranam sarvato vivishankinam. The Brahmana continued, I am actually seeing how a rich man who is a victim of his senses is very greedy to accumulate wealth. So if somebody is ajitatmanam, uncontrolled senses, the result is what? Lubdhanam. Lubdhan means very greedy. And what is the result of that? The result of that is bhayat. He's always fearful. Okay, so somebody is trying to accumulate wealth by so many wrong ways and means, then he's always afraid of being caught by the police and this and that. So he's always fearful. And also the other important result is alabdha nidranam. No nidra. Insomnia. Because when there's fear, very difficult to sleep. So what's the use of being a human being with high intelligence if one cannot even sleep and the dogs are sleeping peacefully? So that's the result if one is always greedy to accumulate wealth. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that they are unable to sleep at night and they have to take pills for mental tranquility to invite sleep. And sometimes even the pills are a failure. So consequently, the result of having accumulated money by so much labor is certainly not happiness but only distress. So what is the value of acquiring a comfortable position if one's mind is always disturbed? So why does one accumulate wealth? Yes, to enjoy, to be peaceful, because then one can get all the comforts very easily and so on. But he cannot even sleep. So what has he acquired by all that wealth? Now, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives some instructions, especially for ISKCON devotees. And Prabhupada writes, as far as our Krishna consciousness movement is concerned. Whose Krishna consciousness movement?
Our.
Our, not mine, not yours. Our. We are getting money naturally by the grace of God by selling our literature. This literature is not sold for our sense gratification. To spread the Krishna consciousness movement, we need so many things, and Krishna is therefore supplying us the requisite money to advance this mission. The mission of Krishna is to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, and for this purpose, we naturally must have sufficient money. Therefore, according to the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, we should not give up attachment to money that can spread Krishna conscious movement. And then Prabhupada is quoting Falgu Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya. And then he writes, money is undoubtedly coming in great quantities, but we should not be attached to this money for sense gratification. Every cent, in India you can say every paisa, should be spent for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, not for sense gratification. And then Prabhupada is giving a warning, especially to preachers. He says, there is danger for a preacher when he receives great quantities of money, for as soon as he spends even a single cent of the collection for his personal sense gratification, he becomes a fallen victim. The preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely careful. What Prabhupada is saying? Extremely careful not to misuse the immense quantities of money needed to spread this movement. Let us not make this money the cause of our distress. It should be used for Krishna, and that will cause our eternal happiness. Money is Lakshmi, or the goddess of fortune, the companion of Narayan. Lakshmi ji must always remain with Narayan, and then there need be no fear of degradation. So, if the money is misused, what are the effects that the Avadut Brahman is describing in the subsequent verses? In text 33, he says, those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxieties because of governmental laws, thieves, rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they're invariably afraid. So, he had said that a person who's accumulating money greedily, he is afraid of all these people because all of them are out to take his money, but he is also afraid of himself. Can anyone say why a person is afraid of himself?
Because somewhere in his consciousness he knows he is doing wrong, and this super soul is telling him. Like,
Okay, that's one possible cause.
Because one day he died.
There's a long time for that.
Someone else will steal his money.
That is already said.
Says,
He's afraid of all the other people who may steal,
yes,
but he's also afraid of himself.
self.
Prabhupada explains that in the purport. Why is he afraid of himself? Because a rich person who has a lot of wealth, he thinks, where did I keep that money? Did I lock it safely or no?
10 times he'll check.
Then after locking it, where did I keep the key? So in this way, he's even afraid of himself. So these are all the wonderful effects of being greedy. And in the next verse, he speaks about 7 effects of one who is greedily accumulating prestige and money. So, as devotees, if we think, oh, we are not so much attached to money, but prestige, very dear friend of the transcendentalists. There's one instance or one incident which graphically shows that how even if one may have given up attachment to money, the attachment to prestige for transcendentalists is very deep rooted. This is a true instant in the Himalayas. Anyone has been to Himalayas? So, in the caves of the Himalayas, there were, amongst many, two Himalayan yogis living in the snow and the ice and freezing temperatures and so much austerity. And what do they have in the caves of the Himalayas? Nothing. Maybe kamandalu, water pots, and cloth, maybe. That's all. Nothing. They have renounced the worlds to live such austere conditions in the caves of the Himalayas. So, definitely, one would say they have given up all material desires and they're totally satisfied and peaceful. Correct? Anybody would say that. Now, one of those yogis, for whatever reason, maybe some mystic siddhis or whatever, he started becoming popular. And many people started visiting him from the cities and the towns. They were taking the trouble to visit this Himalayan yogi. You see that sometimes, somebody becomes famous and people are ready to go anywhere to go and visit him and get some ashirwad, blessings. So people from all over, including Delhi and all these places, they were going there to visit this Himalayan yogi. And there was another yogi in another cave, maybe about a kilometer apart, and he was looking day after day. This yogi friend of his is getting more and more followers, prestige. And he thought, both of us are yogis in the same place. What is the difference? So sometimes one may think, both of us came to Krishna consciousness at the same time. We studied in the same school, same college, everything same. Now he is becoming so popular. So what happened? The envy was burning. Burning, burning, burning. And at one point it came to the intolerable limit, the threshold of intolerance. And then somehow, that's what, when one has material desires, envy, then one can stoop down to do anything. So this yogi in the Himalayas with nothing, he somehow managed to get a rifle. And one day, he said, enough is enough. This man is getting so much of followers and wealth. And he took the rifle, aimed at the yogi, finished. True story. So, were they attached to money? No. They were attached to what? Prestige. The Avadut Brahman has witnessed all this. And therefore he's speaking his realizations here. And therefore in the next verse he says, we'll end on this note. शोक मोह भय क्रोध राग क्लैब्य श्रमादयः यन्मूलास्युर्नृणां जय्यात् स्पृहां प्राणार्थयोर्बुधः. 7 effects of accumulating unnecessary prestige and wealth. Those in human society or intelligence should give up the original cause. What are the 7 effects? Lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, attachment, poverty, and unnecessary labor. The original cause of all of these is the desire for unnecessary prestige and money. These are the effects. And so, therefore, um, Prabhupada is speaking about how here's the difference between Vedic civilization and the modern demoniac civilization. Vedic civilization concerned itself with how to achieve self realization, and for this purpose, one was recommended to have a small income to maintain body and soul together. Be satisfied. And then, especially again, here Prabhupada is writing the Brahmanas in particular would have no material desires. Okay, so especially for the Brahmanas. Now, here again, Srila Prabhupada is giving some instructions for ISKCON devotees. And Prabhupada writes that a sannyasi should have no institution meant to preach, should have an institution, sorry. A sannyasi should have an institution meant to preach Krishna consciousness. He need not accumulate money for himself. We recommend that as soon as money accumulates in our Krishna consciousness movement, 50% of it should be invested in printing books, 50% for expenditures, especially in establishing centers all over the world. The managers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely cautious in regard to this point, otherwise, money will be the cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, material attachment, material poverty, and unnecessary hard work. And again, Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, whatever money is collected should be spent for Krishna and not a farthing for sense gratification. This is the Bhagavad principle. And then he gives the examples of the bee and the python. So the point is that if one is not satisfied with whatever wealth, opulence, prestige that is coming out of its own accord by Krishna's will, by Krishna's plan, if one is not satisfied, one becomes greedy for more and more and more, then all these will be the effects. And so, therefore, a devotee is satisfied in all circumstances, whether one is getting success or failure, dvandvatito, or fame, infamy, whether one is in a happy, comfortable situation or distressful situation, a devotee understands that ultimately everything is orchestrated by the supremely powerful Supreme Lord. And understanding that ultimately everything is happening by the plan of the Lord, Tate Anukampam Susamikshimano, understanding everything is the Lord's Anukampa, the Lord's mercy, he remains satisfied in all circumstances. Of course, this is being materially satisfied, but on the spiritual platform, a devotee is always eager and anxious to render more and more service to the Supreme Lord. Not that a devotee becomes spiritually lazy. No. For satisfying Krishna, the devotee is ready to take any risks and go out of his way. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport that he does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. So before that, he says, satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor, is therefore independent livelihood. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material worlds. Okay, so for satisfying the Lord, the devotee is ready to take any risks and do so much service. Srila Prabhupada is the prime example for this. He wanted to make the whole world Krishna conscious. What to speak of the whole world? The entire universe. That was Prabhupada's big plans. So he's ready to do so much of service. But then for himself, totally satisfied. Whatever Krishna gives. So initially, as it said, Krishna tested Srila Prabhupada by taking everything away. Prabhupada himself says this. And later, Krishna tested him once again by giving him so much. But in both situations, he was undisturbed because he knew that both situations have been orchestrated by the Supreme Lord. So when there was nothing, he was still performing devotional service. When there was so much, he was engaging everything in Krishna's service. So that is the meaning of actually being akinchana. Whether one is little or more, a devotee understands Ishavasya sarvam yat kincham jagatyam jagat. Everything belongs to Krishna. And so, whether one has little or whether one is more, in terms of wealth, in terms of prestige, in terms of talent, skills, whatever, one is satisfied with what Krishna has given and uses that in Krishna's service. And in this way, one can focus the minds, one's intelligence in pure Krishna consciousness, and thus make progress in devotional service. These are the symptoms and effects of a satisfied yogi. So, we have discussed something about the importance of satisfaction, why one should be satisfied, what are the results of being dissatisfied, and both in terms of accumulating wealth, opulence, prestige, and we saw some Shastric examples. So, in this way, to the degree a devotee tries to satisfy Krishna, to that degree, the devotee himself can be satisfied. In the first canto, second chapter, verse number 8 purport, Srila Prabhupada concludes this purport with a beautiful statement. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. That is the key to satisfaction. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. I don't know if we have time for questions.
Yes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, fine, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Satisfied.
Good. But on the spiritual platform, one can always aspire for more. Because spiritually, as Rupa Goswami says, what is the price of the ticket to go back to the spiritual world? Lowlium, greed. We have just spoken about the disadvantages of greed, but this is material greed. On the spiritual platform, greed is good. Okay, fine.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I have two questions. The phrase commonly used is first deserve and then desire.
Okay.
So now, what we deserve is somewhat predetermined in terms of our karma. So now, my question is related to aspiring for spiritual desires for use in Krishna's service for some skill or talent. So now, I may not know, like, according to my nature, there are particular skills which I can use in Krishna's service, but I may desire something which is not according to my nature. So there it seems to be that I'm not being satisfied. So how do we understand this and use in this kind
Can you give an example?
like managerial skills? One may not have managerial skills, but managerial skills are they can be used in Krishna's service. They're useful.
Correct.
That is where I was coming from.
Okay, fine. So, good question. Now, according to karma, this is basically what is Varnashram. So, according to karma, then everyone has a certain nature and certain psychophysical nature, certain set of talent, skills, and so on. And so, there are some things which are difficult to change, isn't it? So, somebody has Brahminical tendencies, somebody has Kshatriya tendencies, some Vaishya tendencies, some has Shudra tendencies. So, that's even as devotees, that those differences are but naturally seen. And some things are very difficult to change. To give an even grosser example, just like if I don't have a good voice to sing, how much ever I try, is it possible to sing like the cuckoo? No, it's not possible. One can, even if one may undergo some surgery of the vocal cords, it doesn't exist. Such a surgery doesn't exist, but I'm just hypothetically saying. So even if one tries something like that, is it possible? No, there are some things which just cannot be changed. So therefore, now if one tries to change these things, or again, if one thinks, oh, he sings so nicely, he sings so nicely, I cannot sing. All the time one is meditating on this. Any use? No. So this is just being dissatisfied. So there are some things which I just have to be satisfied with. Some things are just coming according to destiny, karma, and there's some things which we cannot change. The example which you gave, managerial skills, maybe to some degree one can acquire. But then still we find some are naturally experts. To some degree, if it's useful for my service, I can learn to some degree. But again, so therefore, a part of humility is to understand and realize one's own limitations and be satisfied with what Krishna has given. And whatever Krishna has given, one can use in Krishna's service. In the associates, amongst the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was a big variety. There were highly scholarly, intelligent devotees like yes, Jiv Goswami, Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, all these acharyas, highly scholarly, intelligent. And there were those who were simple, they couldn't do much, like Kolavecha Sridhar, just selling some banana leaves and banana cups. But all of them were dear to the Lord. Why? Because Krishna has awarded them different capacities and they're simply using that in Krishna's service and satisfied. So one has to understand what are the things I can change and what I cannot change, and then be satisfied.
Thank you. And my second question is, in the spiritual world, we see this Chandravali scam, Radharani scam. We see that spiritual competition, and ultimately it is to please Krishna better.
Correct.
So coming in this material world also, sometimes we are put in a situation where we are in groups and there is this spiritual competition. So my question is, how do we make sure that there is healthy spiritual competition without going into that other kind of a negative zone?
Correct. Good. So there's one letter where Srila Prabhupada is specifically addressing this issue. And he speaks about material competition and spiritual competition. And Prabhupada is writing in a Bhagavatam purport, right in the 7th canto, about Vaikuntha competition. This is a very beautiful and famous purport. Every devotee, it's our suggestion that every devotee can read this purport. This is 7th canto, 5th chapter, verse number 12. The last paragraph of this purport, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about Vaikuntha competition. But in any case, without going into that purport, let us hear from all of you some differences between material competition and Vaikuntha competition or spiritual competition. What do you think are the differences?
In material competition, we think we desire for fall down of others.
Correct. So in material competition, one thinks that the other person should come down and I should go up. So this is the material competition. Okay, what else? But you have to tell the counterpart also. In spiritual competition, what happens?
We are valuation of the others also.
Okay, so we desire that they also go up. Okay, fine. Okay. What else?
In material competition, we are has to be enjoy ourselves. But in a spiritual competition, we are just enjoying Lord Krishna.
Okay, good point. So in material competition, I am in the center. In spiritual competition, Krishna is in the center. Something more?
In spiritual competition, we are not concerned too much about the output. We accept whatever may come, the final result. But in material competition, we may be too much attached to what we are desiring, and we may be dissatisfied if the outcome doesn't.
Definitely. In material competition, it's all about me. So definitely, I'm very much concerned about the outcome, the result, and the prestige that is going to come from that. So I'm very much attached to it. But in spiritual competition?
You accept the outcome and you're pleased with whatever it is.
Right. So we are satisfied with whatever Krishna after putting full endeavors.
Full endeavors.
Yes. Now that don't put full endeavors and be satisfied. No. I put full endeavors and then be satisfied with what Krishna gives and then use that in Krishna's service.
Material satisfaction is we remain alone. Material satisfaction.
Hmm.
Spiritual
Competition. We're talking about competition.
Yes, competition. We alone, remain alone. Like we.
Okay, so I want to be the hero.
And in the spiritual competition, it becomes Sankirtan.
Okay, so yes, so sharing the credits, sharing the credits. But in the material platform, I want to be the only distinct person to take all the credits, or rather to steal all the credits. Madhuri, yes?
Yeah, I was thinking that in material competition, we always think about hankering for getting praises and like
Correct.
they should.
Right, so it's all about
In
me,
spiritual,
basically.
when we come in spiritual sector, we learn to appreciate and feel gratitude.
Yes. So, to summarize, in material competition, it's all about me, and in spiritual competition, it's about pleasing Krishna. So, just like now, marathon is coming, marathon has started also in some places. So, the book distribution marathon. So, when there is healthy competition, and Srila Prabhupada also encouraged healthy competition, book distribution, Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, okay, if any temple disputes more, I'll go and stay there for 1 month and things like that. So Prabhupada encouraged spiritual competition. So in spiritual competition, so I also do to my maximum capacity, and I may even desire to do more than others. But then what is the mood? Ultimately, there will be a big score for what? For pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. Not because my name will be announced. And at the same time, there is no envy, there's no pulling, pushing, and all that. So one is very happy to see that others are also doing very nicely, and I also try my best. I may try to do even more than them, but then the ultimate goal is that everything is offered at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, and he's happy. And it's not about me. All right? Oh, you had asked a question, right?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Oh. Okay, do we have time for one question more?
We can try.
Okay.
No, regarding the satisfaction, there are two like last point you told, like we have to be satisfied with the devotional person, and another thing is like satisfied with realizations. What is the point where we have to be satisfied? Just we have to be satisfied with regular devotional service, or we have to hanker for deep realizations.
That's what we said. So the satisfaction is on the material platform. On the spiritual platform, one always desires, because Krishna is unlimited. So how much we can serve Krishna can actually be unlimited. But then at the same time, I have to also know what are my limitations and capacities and act accordingly. But at the same time, within the paradigm of those limitations and capacities, one can still try to improve more and more. Is there any limit to improving the quality of our chanting? Is there any limit to improving the quality of our hearing? No, there's no limit. Srila Prabhupada himself gives the example of Raghunath Das Goswami, how he was always trying to improve the quality of his devotional service. You know that pastime. How initially he was taking money from his father, then he was begging at the Simhadwara gate, then he gave that up, then free booths, then finally even the rice that was rejected by the cows. So it was always within the realm of limitations and capacities. On that.
From the topic, it was very beautiful. We have heard of the downfalls, we have heard of the great negative spirit soul and
Jai.
so I think for me it was the main focus of this presentation, spiritual activities, and we have to develop that faith, and we have to try it, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, they say. Eat the pudding to know the taste of the pudding. So we have to put all our strength in our spiritual practices, in our spiritual service, and then that satisfaction will come. Then we will be free from this material world. So that's why it's such an essential quality for a devotee, because it is being fixed. So thank you, Prabhu, for
Thank you.
giving such a wonderful overview of We'd like to it comes once a year in Kartik. So please give some mercy upon the AIC community.
I'm coming only to receive mercy. So with by the mercy of all the devotees here, maybe some day, some lifetime, maybe I can.
You all the